Okay, so let's see the same if else chaining example. Okay, so yesterday we were doing with the car example. Let's continue with the same example. So there is a car which we are assigning BMW as a string value. Now let's try if car equals to say Audi. Let's say we are printing print. I am an Audi car, right? So here, if you notice, this is the if statement, and we had, like, say for example, expression. So expression has an operator and two sides to it. So the expressions would evaluate to true or false. And then we said we can have else. If it is not, uh, then we would print something else. We would print saying that unknown car, right? So this is how we were writing the if else statement. It was working all along. So then we said let's try multiple if else. Okay. So how do I write multiple if else? So everything would be same except that we would write elif, else if, short form called elif, right? I could say BMW. I'm a BMW car, right? Or I could use another elif or else if. Okay, I could say Maruti. Maruti car, so on. So if you see here now, it is printing I'm a BMW car. I could change this to Audi. It would print Audi, right? So we just saw this if else. So the same expressions, you can use them in the print statement as well directly, right? So if I just say print Audi, this would print true. So this is the one thing which we missed yesterday. Shall we continue from there on? And then we saw what is tuples. What is tuples? List is a data structure which you can modify. Tuples or tuples is a data structure exactly similar to list, but you cannot modify, right?
It's immutable.
It's immutable. Perfect. And then we have seen the for loop, how to loop in a list. You can iterate a list, or you can also iterate numbers between a range, right? Then we have seen a while loop. Basically, while is basically again another control statement which you can iterate in number of times, and then you can mix while loop with the if and all that stuff. And then we have seen if condition with so many operators: equals to, not equals to, greater than, less than equals to, less than equals to, and all that stuff. Okay. And then we continued to dictionaries. This is where we have stopped. So let's continue with this thing yesterday from where we have stopped. So dictionary is a very useful and important data structure. Basically, if you see in list, one of the challenges was now you have to know which value is stored in which location, right? Dictionaries are slightly different data structure where you will have a key value pair. So using the key, like say for example, this is something like in your class, you have a roll number, right? For each one of you. So that whenever someone wanted to refer, hey, who is roll number one? They would be using your roll number. One belongs to Aditya, two belongs to Dev, three belongs to Neil, four belongs to Minakshi, and so on. So similarly, dictionary is similar data structure where every value would have a key. Using that key, you can refer to the data. That's the one of the important things. And also another example we have seen, say for example, you would have an index at the end of the book, textbook, where say for example, maybe we can look into an example in the Google. Let's say how it would look like. Maybe you would have noticed some of these things like this, right? You see here the index. It says this word is in 199, all these things, right? So this is another example of index. Okay, now let's see how do I use dictionaries. It's very simple. So how did we define or how did we create a list? How did you create a list yesterday?
We just started square brackets and we wrote values.
Yeah. So let's say list, okay, cars, okay. List was created using square brackets like Aditya, Dev, Meenakshi, right? And Neil. This is what we have done here, Meenakshi. What is this? Dev, what was this? What I have created on the screen?
Sir, it's a list.
Yes. Now let's create a tuple or tuple. Okay. Let's say bikes. Okay. Now let's say TVS, Suzuki, Bajaj. Okay. So on. Now what is this? This is a tuple. Okay. So tuples basically you cannot modify, but you can use it the same way as list. You can print, you can iterate, you can read and all that stuff, but you cannot change. You cannot change the value or you cannot add any value to tuples. So now let's look into dictionaries, the third data structure. Okay, dictionaries. Okay, so dictionaries also would look something similar. Let's say, for example, we have taken cars, we have taken bikes. Let's take, let's say, trucks. Okay, so the dictionaries start with a flower bracket. Okay, so that's the fun primary difference. If you see here, say it starts with the flower bracket. Now let's create a dictionary here. So every dictionary, what did we say? It has a key and value, right? It's like a lock. So it will have two parts, key and value. Let's say key one. Okay. Let's say key one has a value one. That is how you create a dictionary. Let's see printing a dictionary first. Let's say trucks. Okay. If you see, it has printed the dictionary. Similarly, you can have key 2, okay, colon value, okay, value 2. So this is how you create dictionaries. Now let's see how do I, say for example, read uh, some of these dictionaries. Let's say it's more or less similar. If I wanted to see the value of key 1, I would use the key something like this. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so if I have to access the value of second key, how do I access? How do I access the second value?
Sir, in place of key 1, we write key 2.
Yes. So if I write Q2, it would give me the value of something wrong I did. Okay. Let's say tracks. Okay. Key 2. So the value of 2 is given. Now is it clear? How do I create, first of all, how do I create a dictionary? So dictionary has two parts. One is the key and the other one is the value. That's how you create a dictionary. So you can create any number of dictionary values by separating it with what? What did we separate with? Comma. We have separated multiple key value pairs with a comma, right? You see this difference? I can keep on adding any number of key value pairs. Okay, this is called as a key value pair. Okay, I can separate it this with a comma. I can add any number of keys like this. Okay, now I have, say for example, seen how to read and how to create. Let's say if I have to change, any guesses how do I change a value of key 3? Any takers? Okay, let's say key 3. Okay, value 3 changed. You see how I am changing the value of a dictionary key, right? Similarly, I can change it for anything. So I can access any object, okay, and I can change it. Say I can change it for key 1, key 2, key 3, all of them. Okay. So if you print all the keys, all the key values would have been changed now. Okay. So this is how I read, I update the keys. Okay. Say for example, if I wanted to delete, any guess how do I delete? What should be the delete command?
DEL.
Yes. Okay. Let's say I wanted to delete one of the keys. Okay. From this one, and let's print the whole dictionary trucks. See, now one key got deleted, right? Which key got deleted?
Yes, sir. Key 3 and value 3.
Yes. So
Or
the key
value
3.
or value 3 changed.
No, key 3 got deleted. Yes. The key 3 has, we have not explicitly deleting the value 3. The moment you delete a key, its value also gets deleted. Did you see the change? Okay, so that is what we have seen. How do I change, say for example, a certain object value? Say for example, if I have to change or if I have to delete something. Let's say if I wanted to add key 4. Any guess how do I add? It's pretty straightforward. So I can just create a new key called key 4 and say value 4 new. Let's say new. Okay, and let's see what happens now. You see, while creating, I only created 3 keys, but later also I can add. So I can add a new key for the way how I change and how I add is both same. Is it clear? The editing and adding new keys are more or less same way here. Okay. We're all clear on the dictionaries before moving on to the next one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, there are certain other ways to retrieve the values. Let's try one more thing. Okay. There is another way. Let's say dot get. Okay. Key 1. What is it printing? It is printing the value of key 1. So there are two ways. Either you can use a get function or you can also directly use the array index method. Okay. So you can use this method or you can use the get function. Both of them has the same effect. Is it clear? Okay. So we have seen delete as well. So now let's move on to the next one. So now let's try to iterate a dictionary. Let's see how do I iterate a dictionary. I have been using just one at a time. Let's say if the dictionary is very long dictionary. Okay, let's say there are lot of values in dictionary. let's say 4. I can also use a for loop to iterate. Let's say truck in trucks. This is how we use the for loop, right? So for loop has this syntax: for new variable name to hold the value of a current item space in, then we provide the data structure. It could be list, it could be tuple, or it could be trucks. Okay, so then we say print, okay, truck, or let's say print item. Let's say print item. Let's call this as item. Okay, so basically this would print all the item, say item key 1. So there are 4 items. So from this item you can definitely get the value. Okay, so the for loop can be used for, say for example, bikes. It would print bikes, right? It would be for cars, then it would print cars. So this is how we use the for loop. So similarly we can use it for dictionaries or passing the dictionaries as well. Wrong. Okay. Okay. Now we have seen how to iterate and how to get the values. Let's say now we have been using a very simple way of using the dictionary. We can also use a complex objects as well. Let's say students. Okay, let's say we use a complex dictionary. The above one was a very simple way where we were storing simple strings. Let's say now we take students. What happened? Okay, let's say students. Okay, now students technically would be a very large object. So let's say now let's try to print, okay, students. So what is there in students? Nothing. Everything is empty right now. Now let's add some student objects or students into this. Let's say student roll number 1. Okay, roll 1. Okay, now let's say there are lot of students here and there are a lot of things. Say for example, what do I do if the students have age, name, address, phone number, all that stuff? I cannot just add that in one string, right? So you need multiple strings. That's when we would be creating a complex object, something like this. Okay, name. Okay, let's say Dev. Okay, and then let's say age. Okay, let's say 11 years. Okay, let's say address. Let's put like say he stays in Bangalore. What is the difference here from the earlier one? Aditya, what is the difference here from the earlier one? Here we are using a complex object. So we are trying to use, this is kind of
Dictionary inside a
nested
dictionary.
dictionaries, which is a complex dictionary. Okay, now let's see what does the student print. So student is printing. So this is also a valid. You can keep on embedding dictionary objects like this. So this, instead of a simple string, further I can make it as a very complex, like say address, right? Lane. Okay, I would say Jayanagar, right? And it is all separated by commas. Let's say uh, landmark. Okay, I would say bus stop, right? And let's say pin code. We would add like say 560060, something like this. If you see, now it is printing. This is also valid dictionary. Now you can keep on embedding dictionaries within the value field. So the keys cannot be, keys are always static. Okay, the value field, you can keep on adding any number of dictionaries. So similarly, you can have roll number 2 also here. How do I create roll number 2? I just add, but this will fail. So I need to add a comma. Okay. See, now this both are same. So roll number 2. See, it has added 2, roll number 2. Similarly, I can add any number of objects like this. I can create roll number 3. This becomes like a data base. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes.
See, it is keep on adding any number of dictionaries. So this is a very useful data structure when or a data type to hold a complex values. In real world programming, this is the kind of data structure you would need. Okay. So we have also seen how to add, but there is another way to add a dictionary. Say for example, I could also do students, okay, dot append, and say I could give this whole object to my dictionary thing. This will append. Okay, this is also a valid syntax. Okay, let's see. Oh, no. We have not given a valid one. This is how we should be giving. Okay. Append. Hold on a second. Let's say for easy things, let's say new student. Okay, let's see adding like this so that we don't have any confusions. Okay, let's put this. Okay, so 1 2 1 2, this is correct so far. Then one more and then one more. Okay, let's say new student. I'm appending it to students and then I'm printing. What's wrong? Dict object has no append students. Okay, am I doing correctly? Okay. Oh, this is basically this is a dictionary. So there is a small change. It has to be an array sort of thing. Say, for example, if I change array of dictionaries, then you can append easily. Okay. So this is how I could append. Okay, this is how I could append. Slight syntax issues. Okay, let's do this for one and we can append using the syntax later. Yeah, so now I have added roll number 1 using a array of dictionaries, and let's say this is 2. I can also use the append command which is there for lists. So I can keep on appending, like say 2 3 4. Whenever you have a new student, you can add to the existing dictionary like this, array of dictionaries like this. Clear? Any questions, queries?
No, sir.
No.
Okay.
No, sir.
Now let's move to the next topic. So whatever we have learned so far, we have learned about lists, primitive data types which can store Boolean, what were those? So far we have learned to store Boolean, right? Say for example, let's quickly do a quick recap. Variable bool, okay, I can store true,
True or
variable,
false?
yes, true or false. Let's quickly type all of them so that it stays in the recording. You can refer to any time. We'll say false. And I can create variable number like this, right? Or variable float, which is a decimal number, something like this. Or I can create variable string, right? Something like this. I am a string variable, okay? Or you can, these are all primitive types. Or you can create variable list, right? You can add a list, something like this, right? And within the list, you can have any data type or variable list strings, right? So we have created car, we have created Audi, and so on. And then we saw variable tuples, right? What is the difference? Only difference is instead of square brackets, we use parenthesis. That's only difference. And finally, what did we see? We saw dictionaries. Dictionaries. Okay. How did we create dictionaries? How did we create dictionaries?
So using flower brackets.
Yes. So using flower brackets, we have created the dictionaries. So there is a key and there is a value. The keys always it has to be string. Values can be any complex object. It could be either number, or it could be true, false, something like this, or it could be another complex object also. This is also a valid. Say for example, if you print dict, okay. So oh no, variable dict, okay, it prints the value as is, okay. So these are the different data types what we have seen so far, okay. Now let's try to see what if you wanted to accept some input from the terminal or from the user, okay. Let's see how to do that, okay. Let's take this, okay. Let's overwrite. Let's say if I want to read some input from the user, something like this, okay. So what do? I go here, I'd say Python 3, Python, okay, 2, this is a different program, maybe 3. So it is now, if you notice, okay, what is it doing? Can you all see my screen? What is it doing? It is asking me for enter
Input.
something, right?
Input.
It is asking me to enter something, which is nothing but the input. Hello, I am entering data here. See, it has printed the same thing, whatever I have captured. Say, for example, if you want to write a program, let's say you go to movie theater and let's say you are writing a application to book tickets. Let's say every time you should ask the user how many tickets do you want, right? How many tickets you want to book, right? You cannot standard every time book 2 or 3 assuming that people will buy, right? Let's say this is how I would number of, let's say, tickets, okay. So this you should ask the user to enter because you cannot assume, okay. Let's see now I can use this, okay. It will ask how many tickets you want to book. Say if the user says I want to book 4 tickets, then you can take this input and you can book 4 tickets for the user. This is how you use the input function. So input function is primarily used to accept input from the console or accept input for the program from the user. Any questions?
No.
Okay.
Sir,
Yep.
sir, can we print that message first and then simply give the input, like empty parenthesis?
You can do that. Maybe you can just play around with this. Okay, so let's try. Okay, so you can do this, something like this. Let's say print. Okay. You can do that. Message first and then empty parenthesis. This will do this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So you can also do that. Okay. So now let's quickly take some questions. Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see how active people are here. So Aisha, did you check the yesterday's video? Aisha, you
Just
there?
yes, sir. Just the beginning.
Okay. So what did we do with tuples? What was the primary motive of tuples?
So listing.
No, tuples is a similar data structure like list, but it is a immutable data structure. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You cannot change. What is the meaning of immutable?
Not unchangeable.
Yes. So in list data structure, it is mutable. So list data structure, you can add elements, you can remove elements, or you can edit elements. With tuples, you cannot do it. It will throw exception.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. Great. So let's take few more questions. So Meenakshi, what are the different data types we have seen so far? What were the different variable data types you have seen? Meenakshi, you there? Hello. Hello. Okay. Uh, Swastik, what are the different data types we have seen so far? Swastik, you there? Hello. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Swastik, what are the different data types we have seen so far? Okay. Aditya, let's wait. I'll ask you more another different question. Barnav, what are the different data types we have seen so far?
Sir, I was absent last class, so I can't.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So whoever was not present in the last class, see if you don't follow, it's better that you watch the video. That's why I'm repeating it. Aditya, you wanna repeat it for us?
What's up?
What are the different data types we have seen so far?
We have seen int, we have seen string, we have seen float.
Yeah, we have seen Boolean. What else? We have seen list, we have seen tuples, we have seen
Yes.
dictionaries,
Dictionary.
right?
Different complex dictionaries.
Yeah. So we have seen simple and complex ones, both, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the more we move forward, we will finish all these things, and you will be given certifications and grades only if you finish the projects successfully, homework projects, everything successfully. So you will have a project to submit. So if you don't learn all these things, you'll not be able to do the project. Okay? And you will not get the certificate.
Okay, sir.
Okay, fine. Where did it go? Unit, next unit. Shall we move to the next unit?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, sorry, I was left because of some technical problem.
Hmm. You're back now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So let's move on to the next topic. Now we will see how to create functions. Okay, you guys are all excited? Want to see how to create your own function?
Yes, sir.
So far,
Yes,
we
sir.
have only seen how to create variables, different data types, how to read, how to delete, how to add, all that stuff. Now, let's see what is function and why do you need function and how to create your own functions. Did we see any function so far in the class?
We have seen so many default functions like print and all those.
Exactly. We have seen all these functions, which is inbuilt functions, okay, which are referred to as inbuilt functions. So the Python programmers has already created a lot of functions for you to use, right? So that's how we were using like print, sort, right?
Sort input.
Uh, yeah. What other functions did we see, Meenakshi? Tell me at least three function names so far in the class. Whatever we've seen in the last few weeks. You there, Meenakshi? Hello? Okay, so Dave, what are the different name two different function names which you have seen so far?
L strip and R strip.
Excellent. Okay, Aisha, what are the different functions we have seen so far?
Sir, input, print, um, delete.
Okay. So Meenakshi, you're back. Can you tell me what are the different functions you have seen so far in the class?
Mm,
We have used so many functions, right? Name at least two or three.
Print,
Mm-hmm.
then
Okay. Dave, you want to try some?
Append.
Okay. Yeah, so we have used some of these functions which was pre-built
Sir,
or inbuilt. Yep.
sir, functions and reverse, length, maximum, minimum, those
Yeah,
are also functions.
excellent. We have seen so many other things. Sort, reverse, length, min, max, sum, so many functions we have seen. So all these functions were already supported or already provided by the Python programmers who has given for us to use it. Okay. Now we will see how do we create functions. Okay, so functions has different synonym names, okay, or different names. So sometimes people might refer functions as methods, sometimes people might refer it as procedures. So all these three things, functions, procedures and methods, mean same. Okay, there are few other names as well, technical names like behavior, operation, like say for example behavior, methods, operations or functions or procedures. So more or less all of them refer to the same thing, but we will use the meaning of function to refer to a function actually. Okay, so any guess why do we need functions? Can
Functions
anyone
just
explain?
reduce the labor so that we need not write entire bunch of code again and again.
Exactly. So functions help you. What were we doing here?
We are
We were
just
not,
calling the function.
we were just calling. We were not repeating the same thing. Say, for example, if we have to repeat the same print function to send the output to the console, then you might have to write hundreds of lines of code what is written in the print. Instead of that, we are reusing what is already provided. So the first and foremost most important thing is functions provide reusability. You can reuse the function. If you write a function, you can give it to, say for example, you can give it to Dave, you can give it to Aisha, you can give it to anyone. You can share the functions so that you don't have to do the same thing. That is the primary advantage. Okay, so functions are used for reusability. If you write a function, you can use it within your program multiple times, right? Anywhere. That's the most important thing. So reusability does not mean that you have to give it for someone else. Say for example, if you have a need print in multiple places, you don't have to repeat the same function multiple times. All you need to do is you call the function and you can use that function. So that is the most important thing. So first, let's see how to create a function. Okay, so let's see the syntax of it. Okay,
Use def keyword.
yeah, so def is a keyword, space, and the function name. Hello, okay, functions, okay. Then you can just give a parenthesis and you can put a colon and say print. You can do anything, whatever you wanted to do. You can say hello, you can write any number of lines, okay, in this block. Hello Python function, okay, something like this. Now you can just come down and say hello function. See, now you can just call this 3 lines of code by grouping them under a function block, and you can reuse it. So you can reuse it any number of times so that you don't have to repeat all these lines of code. Okay, so say for example, if I wanted to use 3 times, instead of writing this 3 times every time, this 3 lines every time, I'm just calling this function. Okay, how do I call a function? I just call the function name and parenthesis. Okay, and how do I define a function? Def space function name. You can give any function name. Okay, you can give a function name and parenthesis and colon. So there are some rules for writing function name. First of all, function names cannot have spaces, right? It will throw exception. See, it will throw. So more or less, the rules applied for variables also gets applied here. Okay, it cannot have spaces, it can have alphanumeric, and it cannot have, like, say for example, like say a star, something like this. So only allowed special character is underscore, and pretty much you can create a function name by applying the same rules as the variable. What were the few other rules which were there in variables while creating variables? What you learned? Anyone?
No
Any takers?
spaces.
It should be in small letters, the variables.
Not necessarily. You can have, but it is advisable to have it in small. What other rules did you see in while creating variable?
No
There was one more.
spaces.
No space we have seen. No special character except underscore we have seen. What was the other most
No
important?
numeric character in the first place.
Exactly. So you should not have a numeric character in the first place. Let's see if this allows to have numeric character in the first place. Will it allow? Any guesses, or it will not allow?
No. The syntax highlighting itself got changed.
It won't.
Yes. So the same rules apply here also. If you just run the same thing, so it will work. Okay. So this is how you create a simple function. So any doubts here?
No, sir.
Okay. Now there are few other things what we need to learn, okay, in functions. Say functions, what did our print function do? What
Sir?
was our print function doing?
It printed the things we wrote.
Yeah, but if you see within the print function parenthesis, we were
It
doing
printed what
something.
we wrote.
We were sending some text to print, right?
Yes, sir. Whatever we send that, it used to print it in the console.
Yes. Say for example, now you wanted to duplicate same, say my print. My print. Let's say now you are creating your own function called my print. Okay. How do you write your own print? Your my print also should take something, right? Hello,
Argument.
I am printing something. This is nothing but an argument. You're passing an argument. Okay. How do you pass an argument? Argument is nothing but you pass something, it will take and it will print. Okay. That's all. Let's see what happens.
Sir, my print
Okay.
is not defined.
Oh, no. Okay. What's wrong?
In argument, you have given ARG, while printing, you have given AGR.
Oh, that's the problem. Okay. Typo. Okay. Yeah. So now if you see, you have created your own print function. So what you're doing here is you're passing a value. Okay. That is called nothing but argument. You can pass arguments to functions. You can pass any number of arguments. Say if you pass two arguments, okay, what if I run, what will happen here now?
It will
It
show
will
an
throw
error
error because
because
you're passing two arguments, but your definition of the function is taking only one argument one. It has to take argument two also, only then this will work. See, now it is working. You can also print argument two.
hello something one.
Okay. So this is all possible. So you are printing two arguments. So like this, you can pass any argument. You can pass a string, you can pass numeric, you can pass dictionaries, you can pass anything. Okay, technically. That is how you pass the arguments. Okay. Now, let's say you wanted to also return something. Okay. Let's see how do you return something. Okay, let's see, I have a string. Okay, let's say hello. Okay, I am trying to return what you have passed me. Okay, how do I use f strings? Anyone remember, Meenakshi, how do I use f strings? With
So,
flower
curly
brackets.
brackets.
Yes. Okay, so now what should I do to return? Any guess?
We'll just return str.
Okay, now
Return
let's say
str.
returned. Okay, okay, now this is one. Let's say return str. Okay, this is complete. Okay, returned value. Okay, let's now call the function my. Okay, let's change this slightly name of it. My function. Okay, now I'm calling my function. Okay, by passing two arguments. Okay, now let's see what is happening. What has happened here? Now it successfully called my function and stored whatever the function has returned in the returned value variable. Now let's try to print this. Okay, now let's say I'm trying to print this. Any guesses what it would print? It is printing the text and whatever the argument I have passed. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's do something really meaningful. Okay. Let's say now you wanted to create a function called uh, add three numbers. Okay. Who will explain me what should I do? What should I type? Aisha, can you
Okay.
tell me what should I type first? I'll type whatever you say. Let's create a function to add three numbers.
Can I tell?
Yeah, let's give others chance. Barnab, can you?
So first we'll write def.
Okay, def.
Then we'll give add.
I'll just type whatever you say. Okay,
Yeah,
add.
add the space add.
Okay, space add.
Then I'll give a bracket.
Okay. Parenthesis or bracket? I'll just type whatever you will tell me to type.
Parenthesis, like then we'll write the numbers.
You there, Burnham?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Then we'll give parenthesis. Then we'll write the numbers inside it.
What should I write inside
Any
parenthesis?
numbers which we want to add in one. Yes, sir.
Okay, something like this. Then,
Yes, sir. So then
then what?
we'll write print
Print. Okay.
next line.
Okay. Next line.
Print
Okay.
we write print add bracket.
Print. What should
Add
I do? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Correct?
Yes, I think so.
No, it will fail. Okay. Meenakshi, can you tell me what is wrong with this?
Which line I can't see? It's the first or second one.
Yeah, tell me how do I write a function to add three numbers? How? I say def space add parenthesis how many arguments I need to take and then colon enter. Then I say return n1 plus n2 plus n3. Okay, your function is complete, right?
You just need to call it.
Then I will call it. Okay, let's say print, and then I would say add. Then let's
1 plus
do
2
it
plus
this
2.
way. Let's do it this way. Well, add value. I'll create a variable, and first I'll call the function with 3 and then print the value. Okay, so it has printed. Now I can reuse this function any number of times. Okay, now I can use this function successfully. We have created, say for example, now I wanted to add any big numbers or anything like this. Okay, okay, something like this. So I can use the same function multiple times. So we have seen how to create a function, pass arguments, return arguments, and use it in our programs. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Any doubts for anyone?
No, sir.
Okay. Now let's see, what if I wanted to pass multiple arguments, right? More than one, but I don't want to mention how many. What do I do?
Aster ARGS.
Say if I have to pass a list of variables, I would say star asterisk. Let's say,
Asterisk
let's call
ARGS.
this as, let's say I'm trying to create a pizza. Okay. And I don't know what toppings the user will ask. So I'm trying to write a function which will accept any number of toppings. Okay. Now I have this. Let's see what it does. I'll just only print toppings. Okay. I'll not do anything else. Okay. Now let's call this function. Okay. Pizza. Okay. And call with a, I can pass anything now. What should I pass? Let's say I pass a string. Okay. I pass cheese. Okay. Let's see. Wow, great. It printed cheese. Okay. Now let's say I wanted to also pass, okay, I need cheese and I also need, okay, what else? Onions. Okay. Okay. Great. So it is taking both the arguments. See here, just by using asterisk, okay, now you are passing multiple arguments. Okay. Now I can pass any numbers. I would say I would need mushrooms on it. It would take mushrooms and print. I could say I need, say for example, uh, corn. It would print corn. I would say I would need more kind of a chicken on my pizza, so it would print all that stuff. Do you notice one thing? What is while printing? What is it printing? What is it printing? It is printing a tuple sort of a list, which you cannot modify, right? So when you have a list or a tuple, you can also iterate them. Okay, let's say you can go individually also. How do I iterate? I use, okay, topping in toppings and then colon and then print topping. So this is also possible. So now it has picked up each one of the topping, then you can do it. Okay. So this is how you pass variable number of arguments and the function would take this as a tuple. The tuples are immutable objects and it can use it in the function. Okay. Great. Now let's see little bit more uh, new things. Okay. Now, so far what we have seen here is we have seen everything within the same function, within the same file, within the same window, everything. But large programs or large software applications usually write in multiple files. You cannot just write everything in one file. Any guesses why? Because if you write everything in just one file, the file will become so large, it will be like so cumbersome for people to read what you have written. So usually people write it in multiple files. Okay. So when you write a certain piece of code, okay, you can write them and you can share it in files. That's the first advantage, right? So that you can send a file or email, or you can send it over chat, or you can share it in USB, or you can share it in cloud, or wherever you wanted to do. That's the most important thing. The other thing is basically, did you notice when we were calling the print function, was the print function there in that window where we were trying to run? Guys, Dave, you there?
Yes, sir.
When we were trying to call the print function, was the definition of the print function there in that window? No, right? It was
No.
written somewhere else. Someone else would have written it, right? But we are using that one. Okay. So how did they write? They would have written it in a file and they would have exported it as a module. Now we will see how to export and how to import modules. Okay. So what is a module? Module is nothing but a set of functions or set of instructions which is written in one file, and we can refer to that one file and reuse that. Okay. Let's say now I have written this function pizza here. Okay. Now let's say I wanted to use this in this file. Let's see what happens. Okay. Now what was the function name? Okay. Pizza, right? Now can I call this like this? Is it possible?
It is possible, no?
Let's see what happens. Okay. Cheese like say onions. Let's see what happens. It is throwing error. It is saying, okay, pizza is not defined because it is not in this file. It is not visible in this file.
It's in the other
So
file.
it is in the other file. If I call this same from this file, it works, right? This works. Oops, what did I do? Okay, okay, this works. What should I do to use the pizza function, which is now returned by someone else and they have given it to me? I have to import that module which is written in that file. So what I do is I simply say import, okay, p2. Now let's see what happens. Still it's not working. Maybe there is a syntax error. Okay, so let's see. Name pizza is not defined. P2. Okay, let's try. Okay, so P2. Okay, that's the problem. Okay, now still it is throwing an error, but I just need to mention from which module it is. Okay, p2.pizza. Now this works. Okay, so now you are saying I have written a code in p2.file. Okay, there is a function, and if you want to share it, you can share it. Someone who wants to refer this, they can always refer, say for example, import p2, and then you have to refer that module name as p2 and then say pizza. But this seems to be little bit uh, not very very much like what I want, right? Let's say what if I wanted to use it without referring the name. Okay, so there is another format as well. So instead of just saying import and p2, I could say from. Okay, I would say whatever the module name. Okay, and then I would say import what. Okay, from this import function pizza. Okay, now if you see, this should work as it is. Let me comment this out. Okay, see, now without telling the module name, I could use from this module p2 import pizza. So I have included the pizza module, and then I could call that function whatever is there. Okay, so you have two choices. Either you could do import plain vanilla module and then prefix the function name, or you could say from this module p2 import pizza function. Okay, you have one more variant of it, okay, which says you can also give your own name if you don't want to use the same as make pizza. Let's say you are giving your own name to this function. See, this is also working. So there are 2-3 different variations how you can import others code in your file, okay, or in your programs. Okay, now let's see. There are say for example, let's say there are two functions, one pizza and say the one burger. Okay, now say for example I have created two functions. How do I now say for example, okay, import everything? There are multiple ways. Okay, same thing, you could just say import everything. Okay, so I would then be able to call the same thing for pizza, and also the second function I have written, which is burger. Okay, let's say bun, let's say tomatoes. and so on. Okay. So you could see I could call both of those functions. So again, from space, the module or the file name, and space, then import. What should I import from this? Everything. Or you can only specifically say import this function. You can be selective as well as you can import everything. Okay. Clear so far?
I have a doubt.
Yes, go ahead.
Like we may rename the thing, no, the function from pizza to make pizza. When we like import everything in this file from the P2 file, can we also rename on the same line?
In P2 file, what do you want to rename?
Not renaming on the P2 file, on the P3 file. Like we before we rename the make pizza, no?
Yeah.
Like that, when we from P to import everything together with that, can we also change rename anything?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So let's try. Say for example, I wanted to import pizza as make pizza. Okay. Let's try this. If this works, okay, then we will try the other one. Okay, so for this works, let's say now I give okay, burger as make burger. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, make burger. See, you can rename. You can select all, or you can, if you wanted to rename, then you have to write multiple like this. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So now we have seen how to use the modules or the functions defined in other files so that we can reuse the functions provided by others. Right? Okay. So Aisha, you there? Let's quickly see. Aisha is still there. So what was
Yes,
the
sir.
most, yeah, so what was the most important benefit of having modules or importing modules?
Sir.
What was the most important thing that we are using to import or reuse modules? Why is it required? It is required because if someone gives you a list of functions, okay, you cannot just copy paste their code. You can import and you can use it. Okay.
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay. So far we have seen what are the different ways you can create functions, you can reuse others functions and all that stuff. Now we will be getting into classes. Okay. Now let's see what are classes. Okay. So we have started our understanding saying that hey, there are different types of programming languages. What are the different types of programming languages we have learned? You guys remember? Meenakshi, what were the different types of programming languages?
High level and low level languages, or object oriented and procedure oriented languages.
Exactly. Very good. So Python supports multiple programming language types. Okay. So Python is also object oriented programming language. Okay. Like Java is also an object oriented programming language. Python is also object oriented programming language. So in C, there were no concept of classes. It was all dealing with functions. So in C++ got introduced the concept called classes or templates. The similar thing Python also offers classes. The concept of classes in Java also you have the concept of classes. So what is a class? Any guess what is a class? You all know what is a class for sure. Because you're all studying in a class, right? Which class are you studying, Devdutt? Devdutt, which class are you studying in?
7th.
Yes. So why why would people refer like say class 7 section A? Why would they, why would people refer you are in section A, section B sort of thing?
Like it will be easier for them to calculate marks and all.
It is easy to group certain students into a class, right? If you put everyone in just one school, then it becomes so confusing, right? You don't know who is sitting where, who is who, what is what, right? So it's important to get the clarity so that you can know exactly who is sitting in this class. Okay, similarly, let's see the uh, use usefulness of classes in the programming world. That's one. Second thing is when we say seventh class, which section are you in, Dave? Which
So there
section are
are
you in?
sections.
You don't have sections?
No.
Only one section, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Who have sections in your schools?
I had in my last school.
Oh, okay. So, anyone else? Aisha, you have sections?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, what are some of the attributes of sections? Like, say, you have a section name, right? Like whether it
Yes,
is
sir.
A, B, C, or you have a class teacher for section A, right? You have
Yes, sir.
20 students in section A, all that stuff, right? And that section sits in, say, second floor, uh, room number one, all those kind of things, right? So, in programming world also classes are nothing but it's kind of a template or a architecture which holds certain attributes. Say for example, you had seen in prior discussions we were discussing, hey, what are the real world objects? Say for example, there are students in a class, there are say for example car, there are a lot of components in a car, there are aeroplane has a lot of parts in it. So similarly in the student class example, so there is a class and there are a lot of students in a class, right? And every class has its own predefined attributes saying that this class name is section A, they belong to grade 7, they belong to grade 10, here is the class teacher of this class, and there are 20 students and all that stuff. So we are grouping all of them, and usually people keep a register, right? In school, if you see, there will be different registers for every class, right? So class is nothing but a kind of a template which will hold different or similar objects. Okay, that's one thing. Also, classes have two things in common. Okay, they will have different functions to work with the class, right? Say for example, there will be like function 1, function 2, function 3, function 4, function 5, so many other different functions or methods in a class. And then the class will have some data. So if you see, every class will have two things in common. One, it will have some data and it will have some methods to operate on that data. Okay. So far clear? Any confusions?
No,
So
sir.
technically, class is nothing but like a blueprint or a kind of a design, I would say. It's a design. And then we create instances of that class called objects. Say for example, when we create a student design, then we say the student should have a name, the student should have an age, the student should have a zip code, the student should have an address, student should have a father, student should have a mother, all that stuff, right? So all of them we can club them under a class, and then we can create different instances of that student, like say student Meenakshi, student Aditya, student Barnab, student Neil, student Swastik, student Dev, and all that stuff. Okay, so that is the difference between class and a object. So the class is a design or a template. Object is a instance, copy, or a say for example, it's a implementation of a class. Is it clear or it's confusing? If we do one or two examples, it will be clear for sure. Okay, now let's see how do I create a class. Okay, so there is a syntax what we need to follow. If we follow that syntax, first thing is we should be creating a design of the class. Okay, let's see how do we create a design of the class. So there is a keyword what you need to use. We used def DAF to create a function. We use a class. Okay, let's say student. Okay, this is how you create a class, let's say student. Okay, this is the first step. And then if you see here, there are different things. There are two parts. Okay, we'll go through that one. The first thing is, let's say now you have to create a default function called initialization. So it is created by underscore underscore init underscore, and you can do something like this. Okay, that's first thing. Okay, and then you can create any number of functions. Okay, let's say get get name. Okay, and so on. So if you see, this is the high level way of creating a class. So what should it have? It should say class, and then it should have the name of the class. Do you see any difference the way how we have created a name of the class? Anyone? Do you see any difference? You see, we have created with a capital letter. This is a convention, not mandatory. This is a convention. So what we are doing here is all class names, it is advisable or it is advised to create it with a capital letter, starting with a capital letter. So similarly, the way how we have created variables or function names, class names also have certain rules. What are those rules? It cannot have, Meenakshi, what are some of the rules for the variable names and function names? It cannot have
Keywords as their name.
keywords, space,
It cannot
special
start with a
characters.
number.
Cannot
Yes,
start with a number.
yes. So similar thing applies for here as well. So that's the thing. So what classes can have? Classes can have some data or variables, or it can have functions. That's the only thing what the classes should have. It can have functions or it can have data. Now, every class, it should have a function called initialization function. That is the first thing. It should, what it should start with? It should start with underscore underscore init. Underscore is a valid character. If you see in function names, it is a valid character. So this is the first thing. And then usually we will say self. Okay, I'll explain what is this name, age. Okay, that's pretty much for now. Let's say the self is a uh, variable name which will be used to refer this object, okay, this self object. Let's say now I am passing, let's say, name and age. So I just store this in, say, self, okay, dot name equals to name, okay, self dot age. I'll explain what this means quickly. Age, okay. Now this is one thing. Now there is a name, let's say return, okay. Now let's see what happens. Name, okay. Okay. Now if you see here, I am passing the same name, age, and then I am just returning a name, and pretty much that's pretty much what I'm doing. Okay, so there are two things. First, even before this is how we define a class. Now let's say I wanted to create a student instance. Okay, let's say student 1. Okay, so how do I create? I create by passing name, say Madan, and age. Okay, so do you see any difference here? This is something similar to the way how I'm calling a function, but here there is a slight difference. I am calling a class to create an object of that class. Okay, so I am calling the class name. I'm creating a object or an instance of it, and then I'm just say, let's say if I do print, let's see what happens. Okay, see, you could see an object which is getting printed. Okay, so we will see how to make any meaningful sense out of it. Okay, so this is how you create a class, and then once you create a class, you create objects of that class. Okay, you can create any number of objects. Okay, let's say we create Dev. Okay, let's say we create Meenakshi. Let's say we create Aisha. All different. Okay, so we have created, let's say 12, let's say 14, 14 sort of thing. Okay, let's say we have created different students. Let's say student 2, student objects, now student 4, and so on. Okay, now let's see what was the some of the important things. What is mandatory here? First of all, you need to create, every class should have a definition of initialization method which starts with underscore underscore init and underscore underscore. Do you see any difference the way how I have created a function definition, but how I am calling? Any guess what is the difference you should see here? Anyone? Any takers? Who's there? Oh, most of you left. Okay. Dev, what is the difference you see here?
Sir, you're showing the Microsoft Teams.
Yeah. What is the difference you see? I'm just, there are a lot of differences.
Sir, the age and all, you wrote it in a different way.
Okay. So there are a lot of differences. First, I'm creating a function by default. When you try to create a object by calling the class name, it calls this function implicitly.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have another class at 5 o'clock, so may I leave?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So if you see here, we are creating objects of students. Okay. But when you create an object of student class, it first calls this function. Okay, that is the reason why we say every class should have this function as mandatory default. Okay. Okay, now that is fine. But here, that is the first difference. We are only passing 2, but this is taking 3. How is this working? Who is passing the other variable? Implicitly, Python takes care of handling this variable called self. Okay,
Your
so
self and name is same only, no?
yes. So here, what does this mean? Okay, the class is like a template, but you are creating so many different objects which should hold different values for different student, right? So this means whenever you are passing this, every student will have their own copy or their own values in their object. Okay, that's why we are referring it as self dot name, and we are storing these variables. Now let's try to write another function to make this more meaningful. Okay, how do I write another function? Again, same def. Let's say now I do it differently. Let's say I say get name. Okay, let's say I'm saying get name. I don't want to pass any arguments to this. Okay, and I'm just want the reference of self. So self will be passed by Python. I don't have to do anything. Then what I do is I return. Okay, I return. Okay, the object value. Let's see what happens here. Okay, let's say self dot name. Okay, let's see. Now I wanted to say print. Okay, let's say I wanted to print my name. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's say I'm saying get name, and that's pretty much. See, it is printing me Madan. What should I do if I have to print Dev's name?
It should be student 2.
Yes, I should use student2 object which I have created here. Then this will print 2. If I have to print Meenakshi, I have to use the instance or the object used in student 3. So it will print Meenakshi and so on. If I have to print Aisha, so it is printing Aisha. So if you see here, there is a difference. Okay, let's say how many objects did we create totally?
4.
4. So every object has a different value or different its own copies. See, function I'm calling the same function, but since I have created different objects, it's like I'm creating 4 different objects and putting 4 different values into it. And whenever I'm calling that object, it returns back what is stored in that function. Okay, so far so clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so like this I can create any number of functions. Okay, I could also say get age. Okay, get age, and I could print age also here. Okay, get age, so this will return get age. What's wrong? Okay, sorry, age, return indentation problem. Okay, so it is returning age. So technically now class is like a design, and now you create an object is like a container which can hold. What can each object hold here, Meenakshi? How did we design our class template? To hold what information?
The name and age.
Exactly. So we have designed to hold name and age. So it will only hold name and age. So that is the design. That is the way how we have designed this class. Say if you wanted to store more information, you can store. Say for example, if I wanted to store the students, say marks, like say mark say marks 1, I could do that. Okay, all I need to do is introduce one more thing, then say self dot marks 1. Okay, and I can store whatever you are passing this into this container. Okay, then I could say get marks, it will also get me marks. So like this I can add any number of, let's say get marks, this is marks 1, and similarly I could say show me marks as well. Okay, this is get marks. So let me just remove this marks, and it should show me the marks. Something wrong. So what is going wrong here? Missing. Okay, that is because we have created only. Can anyone guess what is the error here? We have created the object by passing only two parameters, but it is asking for three. One, self is passed by the Python compiler, so that we don't have to worry, or interpreter, we have to worry about only three, but we are passing only two. Marks, let's say 67, they've got 98. Let's say Meenakshi got 95, and say Aisha got 97. Okay, now this will print marks without error because we have added this. Okay, great. So we have seen how to create a class, how to define a function, and all that stuff. Okay, now let's say I wanted to do something different. Okay, let's say there is something I wanted to pass a default value for each of these attributes. Let's say default marks is always 0. Okay, this is possible. Okay, I could do this without passing by default every time. So if I do that as a default thing, I don't have to pass that every time while creating the object. Let's see what happens. Now I could remove this. Okay, I'm not passing the marks. Okay, now if you see, I'm not passing the marks, but still the marks will be available. Technically it should be available. Okay, now here I need to remove the marks because I'm not passing it. See, by default everything is 0. I have created an object. Okay, and that object definition, I have created a default value as 0. Okay, so this object attribute marks has default parameter or default argument which value is 0. So this is another important thing. If you wanted to pass default values, you could do that. Okay, now let's see, how do I create objects? This we have already seen. We have different objects which you can pass and different objects which you can play around with. Okay, now let's see. Okay, now let's see what is inheritance. Any guess what is inheritance? Have you heard of this term anytime?
I saw
Anyone
in some
heard?
anime.
Mm-hmm.
I heard in some anime this word inheritance.
Oh, you have heard it?
Yeah.
Hmm. Meenakshi, any guesses? What is this term? What do you refer this to?
What is the term?
Inheritance.
In inheritance is like one class takes the properties of the other. I mean, like it's like the parent class gives its properties to its child class. So we write extended in the child class.
Exactly. Excellent. So inheritance is a concept which inherits. Like, say for example, I inherit my parents' habits, because all our habits are through, say, our parents and ancestors. Okay, whatever the DNA, whatever the genome they have, we inherit them while we take birth. That is one example, right? The other examples are, say for example, who would inherit my property? My children, right? Or what is that I would inherit from my parents, apart from their habits, their color, their things. I would also inherit, say for example, if my father has, like, say, uh, 10 mango trees or 10 apple trees. Okay, say we are, like, say, 5 members in the family, 5 kids. How many each one would get? 2 each, right? So we inherit some of those property and all that stuff. So the concept of inheritance is when you have a class which is already being created. Okay, so you don't have to rewrite the same feature every time. Say if you already have something which is already built and you just wanted to inherit them into your child class. Okay, you can inherit them and you can reuse some of those things. Okay, so this is also concept of reusability, the way how we have been reusing the modules by importing them. Using inheritance, you can reuse the functionality of the classes which is already defined. Okay, so let's take a simple example. Okay, now let's say I'm creating a class called car. Okay, and then there are a lot of attributes, like, say for example, car should have a seat, number of seats, number of tires, and everything. And then there are different types of cars, right? Say for example, by default I have created a petrol or a diesel car. Okay, let's say tomorrow there is a new variant called electric car. Everything is same except that the fuel type has changed. Will you reinvent everything, rewriting the code? Okay, again the car has 4 wheels, again the car has headlamps, the car has a gearbox, the car has an engine. No, you would just reuse everything what you have already built as a base, right? So you would just reuse and override. Instead of using petrol or diesel, you would say this is a electric car, right? So technically, this concept of inheritance would help you if you have almost everything which is already written for you. You just take that original class or parent class and create a new child class with small changes. Okay, that is the usefulness of the concept called inheritance. Okay, let's see, how do I create an inherited class? Okay, now let's try to do some simple things here. Okay, let's try to copy this, and instead of typing, it might just take, or we can type also, that should not be a big deal, so that way we can practice this. Okay, okay, so Meenakshi, can you help me? How do I create a class? Since Meenakshi and Dev, you were the only two left in the class, so you have to help me, Meenakshi. Fast.
I couldn't hear. The voice
How do
is
I create a new class?
new class
Hmm. We have just created
in
one, right?
Python. In
Yes.
Python, how to create a new class.
Yes, this
Uh,
is a Python class.
yeah,
Mhm. Just now we have seen, right?
I couldn't. Okay.
How did we create a class here? See, just see this.
Like
I
we
type class,
just
class
like making
keyword,
a function.
right? Class keyword space, and then what is that next I need to do? I need to give a class name, right? I will type car, okay? Then I put
Okay.
a colon, right? That is how I create a class. Now, what is the most important thing when you create a class? I said there should be one default method. What method I said it should, every class should have?
One
Every
thing.
class, every class should have a initialization method. So how is the method defined, Meenakshi? def space underscore underscore initialization and then underscore underscore, okay, parenthesis colon. This
Is
is
that
the,
line like is this line like public static void main in Java? Is that the same thing?
no, it's not the same thing. This is different. This is a constructor in Java. Okay. This is like a initialization method. Every class should have this constructor. In Java,
Okay.
if you don't write, it will provide one, but here you should create one explicitly if required.
What do we write in Java for in place of this?
In Java, we do this car, something like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This is in Python. In Python, we say initialization. In Java, something it is different. Here, we should say initialization, and we should pass at least one parameter to this function, which is self. Okay, let's say car name. Okay, and type. Let's say fuel type. Okay, fuel type. So this method is used to create variables and store variable values. Let's say self. How do I store all the object values? I should refer always with self dot name. Okay, equals to, okay,
Name.
name. Self dot fuel type equals to fuel. So let me just change this once we do this fuel type. This is the basic definition of a class, right? So this is how we create a class in Python. Okay. Now, how do I create a object of car, Meenakshi? I said variable name car1 equals to car. Okay, I create like this. You pass
Okay.
or the name. You should pass parameters. You should pass two parameters excluding self. Okay. You should pass like this. Petrol car. What if
What
I
is
have,
self?
what is?
What is self referring to here?
Yeah, self is something like this in Java. Okay, self is a parameter which will be passed by Python, so you don't have to worry. So whenever you use self, this is passed by Python. So Python needs a variable named self. Okay, so if
Okay.
you use this, Python will remember this values. Otherwise, Python will not be able to remember. Okay, so you should not pass self like this. Okay. Python will
Okay.
pass that value because you don't have this object. So Python creates a value and passes it to the function. Okay. Now, if you see, you can use this function. Okay. This is how I,
Car one.
sorry.
No, we can print car one, no?
Yeah. Let's say car name. Okay. What should I do to print the car name, Meenakshi? Any guess? What should I
Return. Yeah.
say? Self
And then
Self dot
name.
name.
Okay. Now, if I print car one name, it will print.
It will show RD.
Yes. Okay, something wrong. Okay, car1 dot get name. It says positional argument was missing. Okay, we are not passing self. If you don't pass the self for every method, Always remember in Python, you should pass the self name.
So
Otherwise, you'll not be.
that's a function, no? Get car name.
Yes, that is a function. Okay. Now, let's say you have already defined this. Now you just wanted to change something and create a child car. How do I do that? I use the concept of inheritance. Now, how do I use inheritance is something very interesting in Python. So let's say, where did it go? Let's say I create a similar car. Okay. Or let's type, where is this? Okay. Now I create another car called class electric car. Okay. Now I wanted to reuse everything, whatever is already built for me. Now I want to extend, I want to inherit everything. Okay. This is the way how I do this. I would say inherit everything in the car. So for every class, there has to be a default function called init, right? So similarly, you can also have a initialization method. Okay. Now here you can, okay, see there is something called super dot, okay, underscore underscore initialization. This is something new what you are looking at. Okay. You have to pass name, fuel type. Okay. And this method would be initialized. Apart from that, let's say I need to add something new in my new car. Okay. So let's say now I fuel type and let's say I add model. Okay. So model is only related to this one. Okay. Self dot model equals to model. Okay. So I've created one. Now let's go create some cars. So can someone help me? What should I do to create a new base car? Car 1. Okay. And say car. And I should pass two parameters. One is the name of the car and the second one is the fuel type, petrol. Okay. Any guesses what should I do to create the electric car? Let's say this is child car. Okay. I do electric car here. If you see, I do create it with the electric car. Okay. Now, electric car, I pass the same parameters like name, Tesla. Let's assume fuel type is electric and say model is like say 2021 model. Okay. Now let's print. Okay. Let's print car 1 dot get car name. Okay. Lot of errors. Sorry.
No, it will be Audi, no?
No. There are few errors. Let's see what are those errors. Okay. Syntax errors. What are those syntax errors? Okay. One is this one. Okay. We have forgotten this. Okay. You see, I got car dot car name. Okay. Now let's see what are the functions we have in car class. Meenakshi, what are the
What?
what are the functions we have in the car class?
We have get car, we have return, then we have,
Yeah, the function name is get car and initialize, two functions, right?
yeah.
So I have called car name dot get car name, which is there here. So it worked. Will if what happens if I call child car dot get car name, because in the child class there is no get car name. What, any guesses what would happen? Will it work or it will throw error?
There's no name. There's a name. Tesla it will come.
It might work because it is an extended form of the original class.
Okay.
Yes. So it is working because even though this method is not there, we have extended. When you extended class, you get all the methods and all the uh, data what is there in the base class to your child also. The child automatically inherited this method. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay. So whatever is there in the base class, say for example, get car name, get fuel type, both of them automatically will be visible in the base class. Get fuel type, let's say, get fuel type. Okay. Return this one, fuel type. Okay. Say if I also call in the child car, get fuel type, interestingly, it will print because it has inherited everything.
It will be
See,
electric.
Tesla and electric, because it has inherited everything. Okay, what are some of the new things you have seen in the child class? Meenakshi, Dev, you have to be a little bit fast.
The model.
There are few differences. First, the way how we have created a class is slightly different from the base class. What is the difference? In base class or in the parent class, we have not used parenthesis like a argument, but in the child class we are using a parenthesis to tell this is a child class and we are extending it from, or we are inheriting the features from my parent class car. That is the first difference. The second difference you see here is in the initialization method. In the initialization method, you see we are calling something weird called super method. So anytime you call something like this, name followed by parenthesis, that is, we are calling a function. So we are calling a function, super function. So we are calling a super and then calling the parent's initialization method by passing name and fuel type. So we are initializing the parent object values using the super dot initialization, and then we are only remembering the model details. Okay, so those are some of the differences. Okay. Okay, so now we have seen some of these things. Now let's quickly see, what if I wanted to override something? So there is a method. I can also override the same method here in the child class. Say if I don't want the behavior of, uh, let's say let's change this print fuel type. Okay, instead of returning, let's say I am printing hi, let's say car fuel. Okay, type equals to, let's say I'm printing this. Okay, so this is a f string, so that's why we are prefixing f in front of that. Let's say self dot fuel type. Okay, now this will print. Okay, now whenever I'm calling, say get fuel type, or print fuel type, this will print. Okay, so this has printed the car fuel type. Okay, now let's say I don't like the message what my parent is giving, so I wanted to change. So I can override with the same method name in the child class as well. Okay, so now I can override, instead of saying car fuel type, I like some fancy thing. Let's say vehicle. I want to call it as vehicle, vehicle fuel type. Okay, so I could do this as well. Now the child method is being invoked instead of the parent method. So when you override a method or a function, the closest method from where it is being invoked will be called. So in this case, because I am calling it from car, child car, it will print me the child car method. So what happens if I print the same method on this object, print fuel type? Let's see what happens. See, it is printing car fuel type is petrol, vehicle fuel type is electric. So it depends on which object you are calling. That particular class or objects method will be invoked or called. Okay. Now we will end this session by, so say for example, now we have seen we have defined a class. How should I import? Okay, say for example, if I wanted to use this in my this another program, let's say I could just say import, okay, car, okay, as simple as that, okay, so that I could create car objects, okay, let's say Audi and let's say petrol, okay, so that I could just use car dot, let's say what is the name, print, or just say car, get car name, okay, so I could just use get car name and this should work. Okay, import, no module name, okay, no, this is import car from all that stuff. We need to say from car import, okay, we need to provide the file name, from which file, from p2 import car. See, now it is working because we don't know from which file it has to import, so we have to tell from this file import car, so you can use directly whatever you wanted to use, okay, or you could also say star, this should also work, so that we can use both car and the child car and all that stuff. Okay, that is how you import the cars and you can use it in other file. Okay, great. Any questions, Meenakshi, Dev?
No, sir.
Is it all
No.
very complex, tedious? It's getting very complex, right?
Little.
Little, okay. So now since we have learned all interesting topics, starting next week, you have to practice, all of you, you have to practice because I am going to give you programs in the class and you have to write programs. So for that, you have to practice whatever we have learned so far. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Meenakshi, any doubts? Are you clear with all the concepts?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so next class, okay, before coming, I want you to take a homework. Okay, I want you to create a student's class in Python and create 10 students, and each class should have at least 3 methods or functions to print name, age, and address. Okay, so please take this as homework and come back because next week you all will be writing programs in the class. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we have 2 more weeks, we have to cover a lot of things, you guys have to start coding. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Bye.